The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and whether you're watching this May of 2020 or months down the line or years down the line, this video is all about how important it is to incorporate mental health in your stories and how it's okay to put yourself and your struggles into your stories as well. Hello and welcome to The Right Mama. My name is Jennifer Aline. I am a freelance writer, the mother of twin girls, and my debut novel, That Age, is coming out before the end of 2020. Today's video is a very laid back, relaxed, chatty video, kind of about how mental health and mental illness has impacted my life and my writing. Since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought that it would be kind of important to bring up this topic. It's relatable, it's raw, it's real, and mental illness is something that I have found is a constant in my writing, not just because it's a constant in my life, but because putting struggles like that into my stories makes a connection with the audience. If somebody has been there, if someone knows somebody who's been there, and everybody has been hit or touched by mental illness. So today's video, we are going to talk kind of about 4 different topics. First part is about how mental illness has touched my life. The second will be about the different topics I've written about in my past when it comes to mental illness, whether it's been essays for school, whether it's been in different manuscripts and books I've written. The third part will be what part of that age involves mental illness and why did I incorporate that part of the mental health realm into the story. And the fourth part will be why it's important to incorporate a little bit of your experience into your stories. I'll take a little sip of my bubble tea. I was so happy because down the street has a really cute little bubble tea and comic book store that is open for pickup, and I'm so glad. Mental health is not a topic that's very easy to talk about, especially for me. I have struggled with mental illness and mental health struggles. I was, let's say, 15 when my parents got divorced. It was a huge shock, and I was young, I was a teenager. It impacted my brain chemistry, it impacted everything about me, and my life just flipped upside down. When I was 15, 16, I was diagnosed with severe depression, severe anxiety. I also struggled with self-harm, very much so. And I also struggled with suicidal ideations, and I also attempted suicide 2 times. And it's taken me a very long time to discuss this topic, but mental health and mental illness has been a part of my life for over a decade, not 2 decades. I'm not gonna make myself seem that old, but to many counselors. It took me a very long time to find a counselor when I was a teenager that I really clicked with. I had to go to so many different people and repeat my story and repeat my experiences. And that was very, very tiring, very hard, especially when it came to self-harm. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I think it needs to be in books more because it's such a real struggle. And I remember when I was 16 looking for books that discussed this, not just because my counselor said that it was a good idea, but because I didn't want to feel like the oddball out. So putting that struggle in your books, if it's very realistic and it's a situation that can be related to, will help so many people. Medication is also something that I am very aware of the use of, the importance of, the help that it can bring to a person. Not everybody wants to rely on medication, and it's not fully the medication that helps you, it's everything else. You can use the medication, but you have to do something as well. I've jumped from medication to medication to medication over the years, and luckily now I am not on the doses I was in the past. However, I still struggle. Every day is a struggle, especially during the time of quarantine. If you're someone who has high anxiety or someone who is depressed or has experienced depression, you may be smacked in the face with a little bit more depression and anxiety lately. That definitely is true for me. My pregnancy and after my pregnancy, I experienced quite a bit of depression. Prenatal depression was very real. I felt very guilty for being pregnant. I was very upset. I felt guilty for not being excited to be pregnant. There were other things going on in my life that kind of pushed that excitement away, but I felt more guilty and more worried and more just, I wasn't enthusiastic about being pregnant. And that was really hard because everybody wants to be excited about being a mom and being pregnant. After my girls were born, I was asked by so many people, do you feel that bond? Do you feel that connection? And I didn't, but I would tell them I did. And for a lot of moms, they will automatically just say, yes, of course, I love my child. And of course you do. But there is a connection, a special bond that many moms feel. And I didn't feel that for probably 8 months. I was very, very miserable. I was exhausted. I was crying all the time. I didn't know how to face this transition from independent adulthood to motherhood. It's a huge change. And even though I was trying my best to prepare myself for this transition, motherhood is a totally different monster. And if you've ever been in this place, you know what I mean. A couple years, I've been to counselors, I've talked to a lot of people, I've really worked on taking my daily vitamins, I've worked on getting myself on a routine, really trying to manage my mental health. And yes, it's been tough lately, but I look back to how I was at 15 and 16 and thank God, or thank whoever, that I'm not in that place. A very, very small look into the struggle that I faced in my past. I am much more open now to discuss it. It is very hard to discuss some of the things that I experienced in my past and even in my present. Those emotions are hard, but if there's ever a time you want to go deeper into that, I could probably make some videos on that. Part I want to talk about is what topics I've written about, whether I've written about these things in essays for school or in my books. And I'm not going to go too far into those books, but we'll talk about some. Write too much about mental health or mental struggles until the divorce hit. That's kind of when my entire world opened up. I didn't want to write fantasy anymore. For some reason, I wanted to write serious, crazy stuff. And when I was 16, I remember having an assignment that my English teacher gave us. I think I was 16 or 17, either a junior or senior in high school. And they wanted us to write kind of like a short story that was very serious, very deep, and there were certain things they wanted included in it. So I wrote about a fight that I overheard and the way I reacted to the fight, which was at that time self-harm, unfortunately. And I wrote it in this story and I submitted it to my teacher. And of course, she talked to me after and she knew what I was going through. My mom worked at the high school that I went to. So my teachers all knew that I was struggling. It was very, very obvious. But my teacher was very impressed with the story. It was very real. She knew the emotions that I put in that story were real and she wanted me to continue to do that. And from that story, I was inspired to start writing my first novel, which was the novel I finished my first year of college. So this must have been near the end of my junior year. It was also that story that got me my Excellence in English Award my senior year. So it was good that I put myself and my experience into that story. But it pushed me to put a lot of my emotions into some characters and my experiences into some characters and what I've seen and what I know about the mental health realm into characters. And that helped me write my first novel, Addiction, which had a ton, way too many, honestly, mental health issues or addiction issues. In that book, I included self-harm, suicide, depression, eating disorder, drug addiction, sexual relationships, pregnancy. There was a lot, and there were also like 6 characters. But again, this was my first book I'd ever finished. But it was the first book I was serious about. And I wrote from my own personal experience. I wrote from the experience of others that I'd witnessed or kind of experienced with them. It was a good story. There's a lot going on, too much going on, but it helped me. And it was my first book. On to other stories and other poems and short essays. I did write a bunch of kind of, if you've ever read Ellen Hopkins, she writes novels that are poetry based. And I liked that back when I was like 18, 19, 20. I was huge into that. So I kind of started playing off of her style, and I would write poetry-based stories. And there was one I started writing where I focused on kind of inpatient work, inpatient care. And there were people who were dealing with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, hallucinations, things like that. But that was a good way for me to express my emotions, to get out those dark feelings and put them into a different form of writing. Writing those poems or poetry-based stories was a great outlet. I wrote Noon, that was self-published in the past. Had many other mental health struggles in it, including self-harm, suicidal ideations, um, depression, anxiety. But that book has been taken off the shelf, and I definitely will be writing about topics like that in future books. Part we're going to talk about is what mental health topics are in that age. The story coming out before the end of this year, and I'm not going to talk too much about it. There are a few different mental health focuses in that age, but definitely not as many as the ones I've written about in the past. I did just a totally different genre, different age category, different style of story. It's a funny book, but there are deep and dark concepts and dynamics in it. And I definitely included postpartum depression. One of the characters faces anxiety and postpartum depression, and it shows her struggle and how real it is. And I put a lot of my own personal experiences into that character. And as I go through these editing rounds right now, when I read those scenes, it gets very dark. It's really hard for me to read sometimes because I remember those emotions and I put them into this poor character that I created. But I know that it's important that I do that because other people will relate to that and continue to read and will want to know what happens to this character and how she overcomes these struggles. Definitely doesn't have as many mental health demons in the story as the books I've written in the past, but postpartum depression is definitely something that is a main focus for one of the characters. Anxiety is another one. Maybe the idea of not believing in yourself, lack of confidence, which can kind of come from maybe depression, but I wouldn't say that the character I'm thinking of has depression whatsoever. But lack of confidence, that's hard. A lot of people struggle with confidence. They may not think that they deserve love or affection or deserve their future career. That's definitely another topic that's in that age. The little part that I kind of want to talk about today in this mental health awareness video is why. Why is it important that you put a little bit of yourself and your experience into these characters? And some people are against this. They say, do not put your story and your life into the characters. But I think it's impossible. It is impossible not to write a story or a book without putting at least one teeny tiny little physical trait or one teeny tiny little belief into a character in your story. It is hard. And if you're someone who struggles with mental health, it is a coping mechanism. It is extremely helpful to use your writing as an outlet to get any distraught emotions out, to get any frustrations, stressors, get them out of you and into some poor character. But it is a huge coping mechanism. That's the reason is it's relatable. You want your audience and your fans and your followers to be able to relate to at least one character. And that's why I like to write multiple points of view. If you can't relate to this character or this character, that character you may relate to. And your story to be relatable. And you want those reading it to feel like they could be friends with that character. They could be that character. They want to learn from that character. So putting yourself, what you've learned from your experiences, into at least one part of your story or character is not only helpful for you, but helpful for your readers. And you want your readers to connect with you and your story. Is all around us. Most of us have struggled with something in the mental health spectrum, whether it's severe depression or just a little maybe test anxiety or something. We've all faced some kind of demon. And putting it into your writing in some way helps you, it helps your readers. It's a helpful way to get stress and frustrations off of you and put them into something that you'll be proud of in the end. So thank you guys very much for listening. I hope that this was helpful or eye-opening, or just, made you learn a little bit about my past writing, my past emotionally and mentally, and learn a little bit about that age that's coming out. So thank you. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, stay creative, drink your coffee, or drink something local to support local.